I plead the blood of Holy Yahushua over this video and over the mind, body, and spirit of every child of Yah watching this video in Yahushua HaMashiach's holy name.
The letter Reish is connected to the word Rosh, head, and has many connotations of beginning. The new year is called Rosh Hashanah, which literally means the head of the year. We see the first word in the Torah, Bereshit, means in the beginning, and the Reish of Bereshit is connected to the letter Reish. There is an expression in Torah, Reshit Chachma Yirat Hashem. The beginning of wisdom is the fear of God, or the awe of God. This is very connected to the shape of the Reish, which, as in other letters, is bent over. But here, the bending over is from the head. The head is bent over. The head represents intellect. So when we say Rosh, the head, we're talking about intellect. The Torah begins from wisdom. And in fact, one of the Aramaic translations of Bereshit, in the beginning, is translated, in the beginning God created with wisdom. So the letter Reish has to do with wisdom, intellect, and yet we see it's bent over. One of the other meanings of Reish is Rash, which means a poor one. So on the level of worlds, the Reish is bending over. The poor one is bent over from his burden. On the level of souls, the intellect bends over in order to make itself understood. Many examples of this we can relate to children. That when we want to explain to children, we can have 180 IQ, but we have to bend over our intellect in order to give it over in a way that a child will understand. Even in more advanced stages, a professor or a doctor has to give over to their students in a way that they will understand. In a sense, God bends over in order that his wisdom can be given over through the Torah. All of this is alluded to in the first word of the Torah, Bereshit, where the wisdom of the Torah, from which all creation emanates, is also connected to Rosh. If you permute the letters of Bereshit, it spells Rosh Bayit, the head of the house. God, again, as it were, is bending over his infinite being in order to fit into the house of this world. Every day, every moment, we're bombarded with an incredible amount of stimuli and information. And the brain, the intellect, has to sort through and prioritize how to deal with all of this stimulus. This is what's called the art of clarification. The word for clarification in Hebrew is birur, two reishes, to emphasize the role of intellect in clarifying what this world is all about. The letter Reish also has a very interesting phenomenon, that it means Rosh, which means beginning, and yet it appears at close to the end of the alphabet. And the number for Reish, 200, is actually the midpoint of the way we count the Hebrew letters. The Hebrew letters have values from 1 to 400. So even though Reish is one of the last letters, its numerical value is in the middle. So the Reish represents the wisdom of God, the wisdom of Torah, permeating all of reality from the beginning to the middle to the end. A fitting meditation for the letter Reish is to connect to this idea of the art of clarification. of how to purify the mind and the thought process in order to be able to take in all of the stimulus of this world and to order it in a meaningful, purposeful way that gives us understanding of what we're doing in the world and who we are.
Shabbat Shalom, priests, and welcome back to Wakefulness Theology. My name is Queen Aliyah Orya, and I'm so happy to have you back today. We have a lot to talk about as usual. I hope that the video and the sound is good today, and all praise, glory, and honor to the Most High Father. So let's just jump in. Today we're talking about Reish and Kuf. Here on the screen, what you see is the video we did last week, which was episode 31, The Rescue. And you can see here that the length of the video was 1918 before I exported it to YouTube. When you upload it to YouTube, they add a second. So I don't know what it is on YouTube, but when I exported this video right here, 31, The Rescue, it was 1918. So last week, I looked up 1918 to see what it means. I usually do my best to confirm my videos with the Father before I upload them. I get confirmation and permission. Here you can see Benjamin 1919 Kuf, and again it's from 2030 to 2033, and again these are the years where the body of Christ together on earth were manifested, and we're going through these things as we are doing now individually on our own. I'm in the process of becoming Christ, the manifestation of Holy Yahushua and the Holy Spirit and the Most High Father on earth. They are in me and I am in them, the same as for you. So right now it's happening individually. We're going up our aliyah. We're going up to the mountain. We're going up our levels. We're ready to begin to go to the 8th and the 9th. We're ready to jump out of that boat on faith and walk on water like Peter. And so in these years, 2030 and 2033, it'll be the same thing, but as the full body of Christ on earth. And again, these years are just a time period for you to be looking for these things to be happening. It's not, start exactly at 2030 and finishes at 2033. It will continue after 2033 if we don't escape at that time, which we might. These are high watch years for the escape that we're talking about right now, and it can be before it, but these are just years that you want to be paying attention to these things. And also I want you to understand that 1919, this also is reflecting us, the years that we personally are going through these things. 2019, okay, 2019 right here is representing 1919, and then 2030 and 2033 is representing the same thing again, but as the full body of Christ. And after his name is finished, after we get to the bottom of this, it would start again. So it never stops, it just keeps going, okay? But as you can see, I looked up 1918 in Strong's. Now, just to remind you, Benjamin, Kuf, we have Satan's army, we have Armageddon, we have egg DNA, and we have myrtle of the earth. That's the meaning in Strong's. And it symbolizes purity, innocence, and secret message. So we've done 2 videos about secret message. Today, we're going to be talking about myrtle of the earth. Okay, so here you can see myrtle tree. The length of the video that I did last week was 1 hour, 9 minutes, and 18 seconds, 1918. And when you look it up, it means myrtle tree. So I kid you not, you can see right here that there's no way on planet Earth that I could have manipulated that or planned that to have that happen. It's the lottery. Like if this was the lottery, I'd be a millionaire right now. More than a millionaire, a multi-millionaire. This is incredible. I pray that you can see the divinity in this work. So the length of my video, our video that we did last week, is the same number that represents myrtle tree, which is exactly what we were talking about in the video, myrtle of the earth. So if you think that's a coincidence, I have a bridge to sell you. All right. So I went on to understand myrtle a little bit more. I looked up the flower so you can see different myrtle flowers. Feel free to look it up on your own. I looked up this website. It's just a random website and it's talking about myrtle. So the myrtle of the Bible is the Myrtus communis. Its origins are in the Middle East. The myrtle is one of the 4 blessed plants used in the Jewish festival of tabernacles, Sukkot. Now this is amazing. I didn't know that. Maybe for this year when we celebrate Sukkot, if you have access to some myrtle, you can add that to your honoring of that day. To fill the requirement of Sukkot, 3 leaves must grow from one point of the myrtle stem. Jewish sages compare the myrtle, which has a good smell but no taste, to Israelites who do good deeds but do not study the Torah, which is the first 5 books of the Old Testament. Prosperity. Many world cultures assign meaning to the myrtle blossom to include beauty, love, paradise, and immortality. For Jews, the myrtle can symbolize sweetness, justice, divine generosity, peace, God's promise, and recovery. Zechariah's vision of horsemen, angels, and Yah among the myrtle trees reinforced Yah's promise that the returned exiles would be prosperous. Prosperity means a person or group thrived or flourished and was successful, especially in financial or economic terms. So what I want you to understand is this myrtle message is talking about us. We are the myrtle. We are the exiles that will return to be prosperous. It is also talking about who we are, and that is what we're going to be talking about over the next videos. Who are you?
Take in all of the stimulus of this world and to order it in a meaningful, purposeful way that gives us understanding of what we're doing in the world and who we are.
Talking about who we are, and that is what we're going to be talking about over the next videos. Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Who am I? Before we were born, when we were in heaven and we were sent to earth, who were we? And we're not talking about our conditioning, but who we are, our souls, our spirits. Who are we? And all of that is inside this secret message given to us from the Most High Father. And it's all wrapped into the myrtle flower, believe it or not. So because we received myrtle in the Hebrew letter, and because I saw myrtle as the time length of the video, and here I see Zechariah. So of course, I looked up Zechariah.
Zechariah, chapter 1. In the 8th month, in the 2nd year of Darius, came the word of the Lord unto Zechariah the son of Berechiah, the son of Iddo, the prophet, saying, The Lord hath been sore displeased with your fathers. Therefore say thou unto them, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Turn ye unto me, saith the Lord of hosts, and I will turn unto you, saith the Lord of hosts. Be ye not as your fathers, unto whom the former prophets have cried, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Turn ye now from your evil ways and from your evil doings. But they did not hear, nor hearken unto me, saith the Lord. Your fathers, where are they? And the prophets, do they live forever? But my words and my statutes, which I commanded my servants the prophets, did they not take hold of your fathers? And they returned and said, Like as the Lord of hosts thought to do unto us, according to our ways and according to our doings, so hath he dealt with us. Upon the 24th day of the 11th month, which is the month Sebat, in the 2nd year of Darius, came the word of the Lord unto Zechariah the son of Berechiah the son of Iddo, the prophet, saying, I saw by night, and behold a man riding upon a red horse, and he stood among the myrtle trees that were in the bottom, and behind him were their red horses, speckled and white. Then said I, O my Lord, what are these? And the angel that talked with me said unto me, I will show thee what these be. And the man that stood among the myrtle trees answered and said, These are they whom the Lord hath sent to walk to and fro through the earth. And they answered the angel of the Lord that stood among the myrtle trees, and said, We have walked to and fro through the earth, and behold, all the earth sitteth still and is at rest. Then the angel of the Lord answered and said, O Lord of hosts, how long wilt thou not have mercy on Jerusalem and on the cities of Judah, against which thou hast had indignation these 60 years? And the Lord answered the angel that talked with me with good words and comfortable words. So the angel that communed with me said unto me, Cry thou, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I am jealous for Jerusalem and for Zion with a great jealousy, and I am very sore displeased with the heathen that are at ease. For I was but a little displeased, and they helped forward the affliction. Therefore thus saith the Lord, I am returned to Jerusalem with mercies. My house shall be built in it, saith the Lord of hosts, and a line shall be stretched forth upon Jerusalem. Cry yet, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, My cities through prosperity shall yet be spread abroad, and the Lord shall yet comfort Zion, and shall yet choose Jerusalem. Then lifted I up mine eyes, and saw, and behold, 4 horns. And I said unto the angel that talked with me, What be these? And he answered me, These are the horns which have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. And the Lord showed me 4 carpenters. Then said I, What come these to do? And he spake, saying, These are the horns which have scattered Judah, so that no man did lift up his head. But these are come to fray them, to cast out the horns of the Gentiles, which lifted up their horn over the land of Judah to scatter it.
So here at the second part, you see the 4 horses. So it says, Then the angel speaking to me, I will show you what these horses are for. Then the man standing among the myrtle bunches said, The Lord sent these horses to go here and there on earth. So we can see here the 4 horsemen of Zechariah. They appear in other books as well. And what we learn about these is that they are destruction. So who are you? They are destruction. So who are you? They are destruction. So who are you? The pale horse, the white horse. You see, the armies which were in heaven followed him on a white horse. Revelation 19:14. So many people believe this is the bridal army. And then you have the pale green horse, which is death. Okay. So I hope I covered all of them. I might have missed a horse, but I believe you guys know about that already. So what I'm doing here is I'm showing you confirmation that we are represented as the myrtle bushes in this scripture. And there's a direct correlation between us as the myrtle bushes and the 4 horsemen, which represent destruction. They go together. So who are you? And the myrtle bushes in the valley are representing those who are prosperous. during the destruction. I'll say it again. The myrtle bushes in this represents the righteous who are prosperous during the time of destruction. And now we can see the symbolism of the horns and the four workers. So here in this verse of Zechariah, because of the secret message of myrtle that we were given, we now understand who we are in the scripture. We understand what's going to be happening, and we understand that 4 is very important. 4 horsemen and 4 workers and 4 horns. And what does that give you that we talked about last week? 4, 4, 4. Exactly. And I hope that your mouth is wide open right now, because if you think that this is coming from my knowledge because I've studied or whatever, it did not. I just learned it the same time you did just now. So all praise, glory, and honor to the Most High Father. So 4 is very important here, and so is the horns. Now, we're going to be talking in depth about who we are, how to find out who we are, and what the matrix is, and to understand what the matrix is so that we can detach from the matrix. And one of the code words that we're going to see later is horny. Now, horny in this spiritual secret language is talking about the horns, the 4 horns. So if you have 4 horns on your head, or if you have a horn or 2 horns, you are horny. Okay, that's the symbolism, and that's where it's coming from right here. So we know we have 4 workers who are going to be frightening the horns and helping Judah and Israel to return back to their home so they can be prosperous during destruction. Do you see that right here in this message? I pray that I've made that clear. Now, to make this even more clear, this was the message I received on December 16th. Again, very important date. One of those dates that prophetically happen almost every year. So it's important to take these messages that the messages I receive in December, especially like the 16th and the 6th and those dates there. There's other ones too. I take them very serious because they reoccur nearly every year. This year, 2020, at 1:27 a.m., I received the message: when he conceals Africa, there is going to be great wealth. So this audible message I received is confirmation to what I've just explained to you. It's about not all of us, but some of us going back to our lands where we were exiled, going back to that during the time of destruction and being prosperous. And that's what you see right here. This message is saying the same thing. Now, what does it mean to conceal Africa? I don't know. When is these prophecies going to be fulfilled? I don't know. But since we are dealing right now with pestilence, which is one of the horses, we know that it's not far off. So I'm going to mirror a video here by a professor. He's a white man, and he is explaining how Africa has been purposely kept poor all these years up until the present day, because we depend on Africa for cheap raw material. And if Africa was ever allowed to develop, our lifestyle in the West would diminish quickly and rapidly.
Sub-Saharan Africa has been fundamental to the global prosperity of the advanced countries. Okay? And Africa had a role to play. It has a role as a raw material producer. We will not allow Sub-Saharan Africa to escape that. Okay, we do everything to keep Sub-Saharan Africa where it is, also impoverished. It's absolutely vital for the prosperity of everyone else. So let's get clear about that.
Now, because I'm a black woman, Hebrew Israelite from the tribe of Judah, a Negro. A lot of people won't hear it from me or other people of color. But this man is a respected professional working in this field, and he's going to tell you the truth. So this is a part of waking up out of the matrix. You cannot continue living in the lie and the illusion and the delusions and think that you're going to find yourself in who you really are. If you really want to know who you are, and you have to know who you are before you continue ascending up your aliyah. You have to. This today is a first step for those of you who are brave enough to face it, because it is hard, it is difficult. It might make you cry, it might make you sick. I don't know how you're going to feel about it, but I pray that you don't brush it off, because it's important for you to understand that you have to unlearn everything. Everything you've been taught is a lie. It is all a lie. And you have to unlearn it. And you have to relearn the truth. And we know what the truth is. He is the truth, He is the way, and He is the life. No one goes to the Father but through Him. So if you want to know who you are, and if you want to detach from this matrix, this is a first step for you. So I pray that you take it. It's hard, but you can do it. Just pray over yourself before, during, and after, and you'll be fine. So here's the video.
So I must thank the Critical Collective again for inviting me. I thought they never would after the last bad thing that I said. I must have upset lots of people, I'm sure. Every time I make a presentation I upset lots of people, but never the Critical Collective, so we must be thinking alike. Okay, so what I'm going to try and do is just give you some charts and a couple of tables, just to paint a little bit of a picture that you already know. Okay, so what this presentation is fundamentally designed to say is this. Africa, historically, sub-Saharan Africa, has been fundamental to the global prosperity of the advanced countries. Okay? And Africa had a role to play. It has a role as a raw material producer. We will not allow sub-Saharan Africa to escape that. Okay, we do everything to keep sub-Saharan Africa where it is, also impoverished. It's absolutely vital for the prosperity of everyone else. So let's get clear about that. Okay, and this means all the economic structures, all the global institutions, and the economics we teach everyone is all designed to keep Africa exactly where it is. And whether it is Europe or US or now China, it's always the same. We need Africa to be impoverished because we need those raw materials and we need them dirt cheap. Okay, so that's the message. It doesn't mean to say that there's nothing Africans can do. Of course there is. Okay, but this is the opposition that they're fighting. This is what it's about. Because if Africa does do something different, I assure you living standards of all those in Europe and North America and Asia is going to fall. Okay? And that is a big price to pay. I assure you that the West is not going to allow that without a big fight. Okay, so this is what it's fundamentally about. What I want to show you is how these structures are operating. It's just 20 minutes, so we can't do very much, but just to give you a little bit of an idea. And why I keep the ideology part there is because we are part of the producers of ideology. At universities and academic institutions, we are complicit in this whole enterprise. Okay, so the job of many Western academics is to convince Africans they have to keep doing what they're doing. Okay, and to show them it's your fault that you're poor. It's not our fault. It's your fault that you're poor. So this is what we do in academic institutions, and I want to show that as well. Let me just start. This is what it's basically about, so you know what it's about. But I want to just show you the extent to which Africa is specializing in the production of raw materials and basic agricultural goods. We know the basic forces that have caused this underdevelopment. We know it's colonization. I will not discuss that very much because my colleague speaker is going to go into some aspects of this. But I do want to discuss the global economic structures, the global financial institutions, and economic ideology, briefly, to give you a flavor of those. Let me start with this. You can't really see it so easily, but if those of you who are interested, you want the PowerPoint, I'm sure we can make it available to you. But the thing that you really need to see is the top line. Okay? And the extent of dependency is captured by this statistic at the top. Okay? And you compare it with all other income groups, and what you see is essentially in that one statistic how dependent sub-Saharan Africa is on raw material production. Okay? This is the very heart of what makes sub-Saharan Africa beat. Okay? Here, just to have a look at one very important additional statistic, with all this export coming from sub-Saharan Africa, how much does sub-Saharan Africa account for in terms of global trade value? We know there are vast resources coming from there, but look at the bottom line in terms of global trade value. Look at that. 0.5%, 1975, 0.95%, going down to 0.1. To 0.1. Meaning that with all these vast resources being produced, how much are they getting for it? Nothing. Nothing. This is a very significant piece of data. Then I just want to show you what has happened to sub-Saharan Africa, because what we know, and from all studies, no country ever develops without manufacturing. Okay, producing raw materials will not take you anywhere. Producing basic agricultural goods will not take you anywhere. And let's have a look at how much manufacturing activity takes place in sub-Saharan Africa. We can look over the last 15 odd years, 15, 20 years. And we see manufacturing has actually declined as a percentage of the total. This is percentages of total production in sub-Saharan Africa. How much of it is accounted for by manufacturing? So this figure here is 17% of the total. Most of the rest, when we talk of industry, it includes manufacturing, but the bulk of it is mining. Okay? Raw material extraction. This is the bulk of it. And here we see actually raw material extraction has stayed the same. What has caused industry to fall is the fall in manufacturing production. This is deliberate because we will never, as Western economists, as Western policymakers, we cannot afford to allow Africa to industrialize and start producing manufactures. Okay, so we will do everything to stop that. And I'm going to show you how we actually block that. It's obvious in certain ways, but it's less obvious in other ways. Now, we have actually seen periods of rapid growth in sub-Saharan Africa, misleading people, saying, oh, we're now doing much better. And this has happened recently. Recently, I've had students come and tell me, we've done much better now. And you can see growth rates rose quite sharply in recent times. Now are starting to go again down. But if you look historically, the same thing happened earlier. Why? Because in these two periods, we had East Asian rapid industrialization processes. So in the earlier period, we had Japan and Korea and Taiwan. Okay, rapid growth, sucking in raw materials from Africa, driving up the prices, and then sub-Saharan African countries grew. Exporting raw materials, they grew. But after those countries finished industrialization, then sub-Saharan African growth rate again fell. Okay, but along comes China. Next wave. Okay, again, sub-Saharan African growth rises, but now China is going down. As many of you now know from the press, China is going down. But sub-Saharan Africa is going down even faster. And we're going to go back to where we were again, with very low prices of raw materials, very low growth rates, and again, the sorts of poverty that we saw once before. Because, bottom line, sub-Saharan Africa is condemned to this role. Just the supplier of raw materials, not a manufacturer. Very recent data showing emerging markets that produce raw materials against emerging markets that produce manufactures. And you can see now with the weakness in the global economy, it's the emerging markets, that's the red line, it's those countries that are suffering the most, the emerging markets producing raw materials. They're suffering the most. And here it translates into their currencies being butchered. Okay? The currencies are collapsing of these countries, and many of them are sub-Saharan African countries. Some of them are Latin American countries, okay, who also rode that same wave. They thought that raw material production was going to save them. But now they're facing terrible problems. And I'm sorry to say, it's just going to get worse in the next 2 years. It's not going to get any better. And this is what it does in terms of gross domestic product. It's the blue line you should look at. It's the blue line compared with the red line. And what we know is that blue line is really going to go down sharply in the next 2 years. Okay, so relative to the rest of the world, sub-Saharan Africa is going to suffer. Again, why? Because it's condemned to this raw material production. This is basically why. How is it condemned to that? Well, the first and most important is the economic structures. After colonization ended, we needed new structures to keep these countries where they were. Okay? And the first of those is aid. Okay? We give them aid. Aid for what? Actually, we give them aid to keep repressive regimes in power. That's all. Okay? We're not giving them aid for much more except a little bit of infrastructure to make sure those raw materials get to the ports and are gotten out of the ground. But for the most part, we give repressive regimes money and power and guns to keep that system going. This is what it's fundamentally about. All the hypocrisy about transparency and democracy and bullshit like that, it's all bullshit. You know? And at least the Chinese don't enter into that bullshit. They say, we don't care about the whole political environment, we just give the money. Okay? And it's for raw material extraction, period. Okay? Number two, and this was a very important one, still is debt. I was telling some of my students today, was it today or yesterday, about Confessions of an Economic Hitman. You remember this? Have any of you heard of this one? Confessions of an Economic Hitman. It's a book written by John Perkins, who used to work for a very nebulous, opaque bank. No one had ever heard of this bank, but it was formed in the 1950s by the IMF, the CIA, and the American State Department. And it had only one job: to lend money to developing countries that were raw material producers in order to indebt them. Once you are in my debt, I control you. Okay? And this bank had 4,000 employees. But no one ever heard of this bank, you see. But it would go to country after country offering loans. And if the president did not accept the loan, they were killed. And he gives 2 examples of presidents who were killed when they did not accept the loan. You see, the lending is also very important to trap the country. It's very important. It's part of that process. I teach in Suriname. And Suriname in recent times had a huge foreign exchange reserve. So big they didn't need to borrow money. And then one of my students, who was very high up in government, he said, you know, the IMF is trying to convince us to borrow money from foreigners. Why? I thought, sorry about this, but, this is the game. And in the end, Suriname did borrow this money because the IMF said, if foreigners lend to you, then everyone will think Suriname is such a strong economy that foreigners are interested in lending to you. You understand? Before Lula came to power, the previous president in Brazil, Cardoso, his predecessor, took a gigantic international loan. No necessity for taking the loan. Why? Because once I catch you with the debt strings, I hold you forever. You are my prisoner. Okay, so debt has been this huge spider's web which has trapped sub-Saharan Africa and keeps them held there. Aid, debt. We have a third structure which is again not known by many people, but it's something that was put in place and continues to this very day, with no one discussing it. No one says anything about it. It is monopoly buying structures. This is for all raw materials and basic agricultural goods produced by developing countries. There are only 4 or 5 Western multinationals that buy all those goods. And they collude between them. So if you take any major product, these Western multinationals, they collude between them. Even if we go down to banana production, we had a PhD done here at the ISS, and the person showed that the 4 or 5 major multinationals, they collude, and in order to make sure their control is total, what they do is they force all the producers to produce the same uniform banana. You know, the crap you buy in the West and has no taste at all. You go to any developing country, you know how a banana tastes, don't you? There's so many of them, lots of varieties, but we only market 1 or 2 types, so we have control, you see. If you don't produce at the price I want you to produce, I go to the next country. You see, we get control. So these buyers, they impose that control, and they keep pushing the prices down and down and down. Okay, this is the game. No one says anything about it. There are no commissions of inquiry to say, this is illegal, what you're doing. The WTO has nothing to say about this. But sorry to say, you know, if banana prices rose 10 times, especially for people like me who love bananas, okay, I protest. I like my living standards. Okay, it's the same with all the other raw materials, you see. We're all benefiting, we're complicit. We're actually complicit in this because we will protest and shout out if the situation ever changed. Okay. Okay, now we come to those international institutions. And I must tell you this, from the outset, don't think of them as wicked. IMF, World Bank, WTO. We always think evil creatures, horrible. It's not. It's just economics. It's economic warfare. The rich declare war on the poor. It happens everywhere. It happens in a country. The rich control the government. Of course they do. You really believe you have democracy? Come on. Grow up. This is not about people living in democratic systems. What we have is the rich control. The rich set up these institutions explicitly to control the poor countries. And they don't give them much room for maneuver. Which incidentally, when the IMF starts talking of poverty alleviation, you should also understand that there's another game there also starting to play, which I'm going to come back to later. But what do these institutions do? What does the IMF do? What is structural adjustment about? It's about making sure countries keep producing what we want them to produce. We make sure they have recurrent balance of payments problems. You notice these countries never get out of balance of payments problems. You notice that? Whereas countries that never took IMF support are always out of balance of payments problems. But the countries that are continuously getting advice and support by the IMF, they're always in balance of payments problems. Why? Because that's the way we keep our stranglehold on them. And that's what we have done. We have done, the IMF and the World Bank. And they've also done something very, very important. And that is they have destroyed the self-sufficiency of these countries. Colonization started it. Okay? One of the most important things is we destroy food self-sufficiency. Okay? And the World Bank continued it. They forced most countries to eliminate all food subsidies and food support. Okay? Because once you don't produce your own food, I increase my control over you. How do we know this? Well, very funny thing happened some years ago. Not so funny, actually. It involved starvation of a large number of people in Malawi. Okay? Many of you could remember this because it was really tragic. But the Malawian finance minister, who was under terrible threat at the time, suddenly broke ranks and he said, well, you know why we had this famine? Because one of the conditions of the loan given by the World Bank was we destroyed all our grain surplus stocks. Why? Because remember, we want you dependent. 1970s, the US Senate, the US Congress said, we will not allow Latin America to produce their own food. We will start a strategy involving the IMF and the World Bank to destroy food self-sufficiency of Latin America. Then they will indeed be our true backyard. And that's exactly what they've done. Look at all the Latin American countries. Look at them. They used to be food self-sufficient, but they're no longer food self-sufficient. Now here comes the kicker. This is the beautiful part of it. I congratulate them. You know I admire them because they do it so well. Okay? I know it sounds really perverse. But we have now in the WTO something called the Agreement on Agriculture. Okay? You know what that Agreement on Agriculture states? It says, if you don't have any subsidies, you're not allowed to put these subsidies on food. But if you have subsidies and income support for food production, you can keep them. Who has all the subsidies and income support? US, Europe. The largest budgets in the world for supporting their farmers are Europe and US. But the World Bank and IMF have destroyed all those subsidies. You see, all those subsidies have been destroyed. And now we're telling these countries, you don't have subsidies? Tough luck. You know? You see, we're keeping them dependent. We're keeping them on a string. I have 5 minutes, so I have to be choosy about what I say next. we have lots of examples in the WTO to really stop Africa industrializing. This is the crucial thing. We cannot allow them to produce manufacturers. It's not difficult. Trust me, it's not difficult. We need nationalist governments. We need them committed to industrialization, and it won't take them a decade to move out from where they are. This is the fundamental point. It's not difficult. But this next round of the WTO is designed to block that. If we had time, I would go through all the different things that they're trying to put into place to block anyone else getting on top of the ladder. You've read this book of Hajun Chang, Kicking Away the Ladder. You see, when we become rich, we make sure the others can't climb up the ladder and join us. Okay? And this is what this next Doha round is about. It's to make sure, especially sub-Saharan African countries, do not escape. Since I have about 3 minutes left, I'm going to go to this economic ideology thing, because this is important for academics. You see, we teach, in many cases, garbage, and it doesn't hurt anyone, a lot of this garbage. You know, it's a blah, 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 blah. And we don't know what we have learned, but anyway, we were there at the university, and you got a certificate, and you go away, and you feel you've learned something. But sometimes we teach very destructive things. And no more important than when we're teaching people from developing countries. Okay? And one of those very damaging and destructive things is the doctrine of comparative advantage. It's a lie from beginning to end. It's utter crap. It has been decimated many times, but we keep it in every curriculum. Why? Because it tells sub-Saharan African countries that their destiny is to produce raw materials, you see. And if you produce raw materials, you get rich just like we are in the West. You see, this is the game we're playing. And just for you to be totally confused, we normally build models with it, mathematical models, so you really have no idea what we're talking about. But it seems all very scientific. Then we have the modern version of this is because it's all a failure, we know it's a failure, we now have a new generation of economists saying, it's only a failure because you're all corrupt in your countries. We call that new institutional economics. You've all probably learnt it all, but you didn't know why they invented it. It was invented to tell you the same thing. You should keep producing raw materials. Now, don't be as corrupt as you were before. Nobody ever told you that aid was designed to actually start the corruption process in the first place. Okay, and we need corruption to make sure you're doing all these things. But now we blame the victim. You're poor because it's your fault, basically. And you're poor, stupid, and corrupt, basically. This is the message that we're giving people. We also have many theoretical justifications, but I'm going to say something controversial to end. And she's happy that I'm ending because she has to discipline me. And that is, there are also what I call more enlightened approaches, but which are also potentially destructive for sub-Saharan African development. And this is where I come back to the IMF and the World Bank. You see, now they're all into poverty alleviation. They want you to concentrate on redistributing income, and it's something nice. You're young people, you're socially conscious, you're aware. You don't like all this injustice. So you gravitate towards what we call pro-poor strategies. But actually, I'm sorry to tell you, that is not what Africa needs. Africa needs aggressive industrialization. When China was a communist country and we had equal distribution, who feared China? Who took them seriously? They weren't even the size of the Netherlands. But today, I can't open an internet site, I can't open a magazine, I can't open a newspaper without China, 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 China. And we know what has built China. It's not socialism or communism, it's capitalism, guys. It's manufacturing, it's production. This is what creates employment. This is what created jobs. I'm not pro-capitalist, but this is the reality. And unfortunately, we're now going to get caught with the good cop, bad cop. The good cop is now IMF saying, oh, you must concentrate on poverty reduction and income redistribution, as long as we can take you away from industrialization. This is the crucial thing, you know. I leave it at that. And I'm sorry I took so much.
We're coming to the end of the video today. What we learned is that we need wisdom. This is coming from the letter Reish. We need wisdom. And you can't have wisdom if you don't know where you are and who you are and where you're going. This is a master key to you evolving in your levels here. So I pray that you receive that. Since we talked about the letter, we talked about 4 in Zechariah, the 4 horsemen, the 4 horns, and the 4 helpers. So next week we're going to come back in and talk more about 4 with the letter lines that completely confirm what we talked about today. And then we're going to continue on here about learning who we are. I've had amazing experiences where I know who I am now. He has told me, it's been confirmed. It's just so much to tell you, and I look forward to that next week. I love you so much in Christ. I pray that you have a beautiful, blessed day. All glory to the Most High Father. I am this perfect day, and within me the light which does not fail dwells. Shalom.